And we're back.
Hi, it's Jeannie.
It is L, INTP, ENTP.
Yep.
So we're here to do a little bit of a who's who. A lot of people ask, how can you tell who's in INTP, ISTJ? We tend to, at least I know for me, I tend to kind of figure it out letter by letter.
Mm-hmm.
The first letter of the Myers Briggs personality type result is extrovert or introvert. I feel like this one's pretty self-explanatory. I feel like extroverts tend to talk a lot more and tend to give you a whole lot of information that you did not need or ask for. Extroverts obviously tend to be out and about a whole lot more. I find that introverts, while they may open up to you, they don't often give you more information than you need. What do you think?
I agree with those points. As an introvert, I'm not going to ask you a lot of questions. I just expect you to tell me if it's important, it's going to come up.
And I think you don't give up information unless you're specifically asked about that thing.
That is correct.
Whereas the extrovert will be like, do you know what I saw at the grocery store today? So I think that we tend to be a lot more forthcoming with just our thoughts, our ideas, information, what happened that day, what happened that week, did you hear what happened with so-and-so?
Yeah, and the introverts, we usually will not, as you're seeing now.
Yeah, and also extroverts tend to get their energy from other people, connecting, chatting, being in a social event. Introverts tend to get their energy from being alone, kind of recalibrating. A lot of people get that one screwed up, but for me, it's really, really obvious.
Yes.
Extrovert, introvert.
And just because you like some alone time and people annoy you and make you tired does not mean you're an introvert.
Correct.
That's not introvertedness. So
I mean, I'm an extrovert and I find people really annoying, but I still yearn for connection. I still like to meet people. I still like parties. I still feel comfortable in social events. So
I don't need to be talking to that many people at social events. So
the next letter of the Myers-Briggs is N or S, intuitive or sensor.
Yep.
I tend to be able to figure out if someone's an intuitive through conversation. Is our conversation getting really deep? Are we talking about kind of out there topics? Are we talking about daydreams, fantasies, patterns we've noticed in just society? Sensors to me are obvious in the sense that they tend to be doers. They tend to be very hands-on. They tend to kind of be out and about getting stuff done, more in the world and less in their head, like intuitives. What do you think?
That's true. I find that the sensors are definitely doers and they do for themselves. They have that motivation and they talk about very superficial things a lot of times. So, did you see what Cardi B was doing and how she was doing it and what name brand was her pocketbook and where she was shopping? And
sensors tend to learn through doing, whereas intuitives tend to learn through reading. I almost see them as like intuitives as like the librarian and sensors as like the athlete. So that I feel is the difference. Hope that helps you guys.
Yeah, I to me it's like sensors are the 3 feet in the pool people and the intuitives are the deep divers.
That's a good analogy. The next letter is T or F, thinker or feeler. This one tends to get people really up in arms, especially men who test as feelers and women who test as thinkers. I love this joke of like how to tell if you're a thinker or a feeler. The question is, would you fire your sister? A thinker would easily.
I would.
We both would. We would definitely fire each other.
I would fire her.
Feelers, on the other hand, would definitely hesitate or think to themselves, well, why? What's the context? Well, what did she do? Feelers would have a much harder time firing their sister. Thinkers tend to do what's fair, whereas feelers tend to want to do what makes everyone happy. What do you think?
So I I think also a misconception between feelers and thinkers is that thinkers have no emotion and feelers have no logic. And that's not true. Everybody's capable of using logic and emotion. Just the percentages are different, and also it's what you reach for first.
Correct.
And if you know yourself very well, you know whether you're going to lead with emotion or you lead with logic. And thinkers, for the most part, lead with logic, but they also have very strong and deep-seated emotions. That doesn't mean we're devoid of that.
Right.
Again, with feelers, they lead with emotion. There's nothing wrong with that. They are able to incorporate logic, just not where the thinkers would.
Yeah, I feel like feelers tend to care greatly what people think. Either they're caring what people think about them, or they care what people think in terms of how do I please the group? How do I make others happy? I think that's a huge focus for them. Whereas for thinkers, although you might not want to make people upset, it's not a deal breaker for you. It's not the end of the world if you make a decision that people don't like. You feel like, I can live with it, and so can they.
And you do live with it if you make somebody upset and it was a fair decision.
Correct. Or do you have anything else to
No.
add? Okay. So the last letter of the Myers Briggs will be P or J, perceiver versus judger.
Not what it sounds like.
Right. This one's also a little tricky to tell sometimes. I've gotten better at it. I would say that judgers tend to be black and white thinkers. They tend to want a plan for their day. They tend to be on time, and they tend to be a bit more structured and organized and routine in their everyday lives.
They also have better execution. Once they plan something, they usually will get it done.
There you go. The perceiver, on the other hand, tends to be a lot more spontaneous, a lot more fly by the seat of their pants, go with the flow.
More open-minded.
More open-minded. They tend to think in the world of gray a little more. They tend to need context. So that's what I would think is the difference between those two. What do you think? You have anything to add?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Not that you can't go between back and forth depending what you're needed, but you have to look at what is your foundation, what is your core. It can definitely be a lot more structured and black and white at work, because that's where it's needed. But being my true self, where my core is, I'm definitely open-minded, fly by the seat of my pants person.
Right.
Can I be extroverted when needed? Definitely. And so some people who meet me can't believe that I'm an introvert. But now I need to go home and recharge for 3 hours.
Right.
So it's get to know yourself.
Yeah. So I hope that explains to you guys a little bit about the functions as well as our functions. We are both intuitives, which means we are deep thinkers. We're both thinkers, which means we are logical. We are both perceivers, which means we're pretty go with the flow. The biggest difference between us is that I'm an extrovert, which is obvious, and Jeannie is an introvert.
I'm an introvert, so. Yeah.
So I hope that gives you guys some clarity on what might be your own type, as well as us, the hosts of this show.
Like and subscribe to our channel.
Give it a thumbs up.
Yeah.